If any one country were to learn the dangers of the Nazi Party, it would be Germany. After all, that single social movement ruined their reputation for at least 3 decades. However, it seems that once again, Germany has fallen to the whim of the Nazi Party, but under a new name this time, the AfD. Except this time, they're not alone. As Vox News with a V describes just yesterday on June 9th, 2024, that Europe as a whole is lurching to the right, with parliamentary elections in France, Italy, and Germany shifting more towards the right than center and left-leaning. This is due to a variety of factors, such as increased sentiment towards hatred of immigrants, specifically from areas such as Ukraine and Israel, as well as a belief that climate policies are not as effective as many have begun to believe. Now, with this, many are wondering what's going to be the short and long-term impacts of not only European local governments, but the EU shifting to the right. And so, considering that the far right has the potential to dissolve the European Union completely, it is essential that we discuss today's topic. Why is Europe lurching to the right? And that allows us to discuss and deeper analyze the question, what are going to be the impacts of not only European local governments, but the EU lurching to the right as a whole? And the answer, that is going to negatively impact not only the European Union and Europe, but the entire world as a whole. First, because the European Union has shifted to a more far-right form of parliamentary, potentially allowing it to be dissolved. And second is because of a backtrack in climate policies. Now, despite the far-right not having the majority, they still hold all the power, which is why the first way that the European Union and Europe as a whole is going to be negatively impacted by the lurching to the right is because European Union Parliament have shifted to the right massively. Now, European Union used to be very center. As CNBC describes on June 9th of 2024, that of the 720 seats in the European Union Parliament, almost all were coined by center to center left and center right. Sure, there were a couple that were prescribed of the far right and the far left. However, they had little say in any matters. The European Union was normally a very cooperative bloc with very strong economic ties to other countries such as Russia and the United States. However, following the lurching to the right in local and European parliamentary elections, the European Union has shifted to the far right. As Al Jazeera describes on June 9th of 2024, that the far right now has a vast control over what policies are passed inside the European Union Parliament, meaning that of the 720 seats, they do not have the majority. However, they still comprise a vast amount of seats that allow them to dictate what policies are said. And with the majority of the far right being more isolationist and nationalistic rather than more cooperative with other countries, it's clear that many, such as the AfD in Germany, have called for their own form of Brexit, which is where the United Kingdom left the European Union, which had disastrous consequences for themselves and other countries around them. But that's an entirely new discussion. Therefore, it's clear that because the European Union has shifted to the far right, it's clear that there is the potential of the entire bloc just dissolving completely. Now, for a progressive bloc, the European Union has sure become conservative. And that's especially true with their climate policies, which is why the second and final way that the European Union and Europe as a whole will be negatively impacted by the shift to the far right is because of a backtrack in climate policies. Now, Europe as a whole used to be very progressive when it comes to climate change. As the Center for American Progress describes on December 1st of 2023, that from 1990 to 2023, they decreased carbon emissions by 32.5%. The European Union had a Green New Deal in order to completely neutralize to have zero carbon emissions by 2050, and to invest into more renewable energies and zero carbon emission energies, such as nuclear, solar, wind, and hydro. However, with the far right gaining so much more power in the European Union and Europe as a whole, it's clear that backtracking is all but inevitable. As Reuters describes on June 9th of 2024, that there's a massive backtrack in climate policies, with parties such as the AfD in Germany not believing that climate change is a thing overall, instead focusing on more shore-up energies such as gas fracking. They believe that progressive climate policies, do not help the economy. Therefore, it's clear that because of the fact that the European governments and far right do not believe in climate change as a big of a deal as it is led out to be, that the European Union's and Europe's climate policies are going to significantly backtrack. So when once again considering that the European Union used to be a very powerful group, but this now may be the end, it is essential that we once again discuss Why is Europe lurching to the right? Which allows us to deeper discuss and analyze the question, what will be the impacts of the European Union? What will be the impacts of the European Union and Europe lurching to the right? And the answer is going to negatively impact all of the above because of the far right shifts. First is because of the potential dissolving of the EU, and second is because of the backtracking in climate policies.